roster from where he came, we know not. But that's the kind of program Maryland has, help from wherever they can get it. Let's meet the players and Art Chandler, our public address announcer.
Ladies and gentlemen, your starting lineups for this afternoon. First for the Terrapins from the University of Maryland. Starting at a guard at 6'4" and a senior from Knoxville, Tennessee, number 21, John Johnson. At 6'4" and a senior from Wilmington, Ohio, number 22, Greg Nard. At center, standing 6'9" and a junior from Sussex, Virginia, number 25, Tony Massenberg. And at forward, at 6'6" and a senior from Olar, South Carolina, number 23, Dave Dickerson. And a 6'10" freshman from Greenbelt, Maryland, number 32, Gerard Mustaf. Your head coach, Mr. Bob Wade. And now for your Blue Devils. A 6'3" senior from Mercer Island, Washington, number 14, Quinn Snyder. A 6'4" junior from University Park, Illinois, number 3, Phil Henderson. Standing 6'10" and a junior from Bloomfield, New Jersey, number 30, Ala Abdelnabi. A 6'7" senior from Fort Washington, Maryland, number 33, John Smith. And at 6'10" and a senior from Bowie, Maryland, number 35, Danny Ferry. Your head coach for Duke, Mr. Mike Krzyzewski.
Your officials for today, Larry Rose, Dick DeParo, and Larry Lembo. And the introduction of the last couple of players at Duke was not lost on Maryland followers, John Smith from Fort Washington, Mary, and the All-American Danny Ferry from Bowie, Maryland. Our matchups for this afternoon's game, the Blue Devils and the Terrapins.
Well, we see Dave Dickerson guarding Danny Ferry, and that may allow Gerard Mustaf to concentrate more on his offensive game. But then again, Gerard Mustaf and Danny Ferry played at DeMatha High School, so they have some common origins right here.
Abdelnabi in the white of Duke, white and blue. Tony Massenberg in the red of Maryland, a darker uniform. And it's controlled by the Terrapins, who upset the Blue Devils here a year ago. That's Nard in backcourt, and Snyder's on him. And Mustaf is absolutely free and has the 2 points.
Gerard Mustaf.
Snyder and Henderson in backcourt for the Blue Devils. They've started every single game this year, all 20 of them. And that ball is a turnover. Quick 2 points by Mustaf, who was left unguarded, and then a bad pass from Abdelnabi, and here come the Terrapins.
Well, we see both teams are playing a good man-to-man defense, and both are trying to feel each other out. I'm sure Duke feels that Maryland, despite their record, is a very dangerous team, and they can't take them lightly.
Make no mistake, it's a shot from Johnson, and that is a three-pointer, and it's 5-0. Johnson had 25 points and 7 assists in the win over Clemson earlier this week. If the Blue Devils were asleep, they no longer are. Henderson. Smith. And Danny Ferry's first shot, 2 points.
Well, what we saw in the beginning of this telecast here with the matchup situations, that we thought Dave Dickerson would be guarding Danny Ferry, but Gerard Mustaf was guarding him, and Danny Ferry may be able to take advantage of Mustaf's lack of experience, senior against freshman.
Dickerson starting for the injured Walt Williams. That's Nard, called on to be a point guard. Johnson looking for shooting room. Mustaf loose again. This time no good. Massenberg goes up for it, and Abdelnabi, I do believe, is going to be called with a foul.
Well, Ala Abdelnabi, one of his problems is the fact that once he gets blocked out, he makes a decision to go over someone's back as opposed to get around them, and he's been saddled with some foul problems throughout this season.
Not a shooting foul. Nard taking the inbound pass from Dave Dickerson. A stop again. Pass Ferry. And a turnover.
Gerard Mustaf that time was a little indecisive as to what to do. Danny Ferry closed in on him quickly on defense and caused the turnover, the walk by Mustaf.
Snyder blows right by Nard and feeds over and past Ferry, and it belongs to Maryland. 2 of the 3 times that Duke has been down court, they have thrown the ball away. Bob Wade looking on, hoping for a repeat of last year's big upset here at Cameron Indoor Stadium. 2 minutes have gone by. 5-2, Maryland.
Well, as we mentioned, Jim, Maryland is being very patient here on offense. They're moving the ball. They've got nice weak side kicking.
Oh, look at this. Massenberg. And his foul. And that is going to be on John Smith.
Well, what Maryland is doing right now is they're playing very patiently offensively. Here you see Tony Massenberg sneaks behind the Duke defense. What's happening is there's so much picking on the weak side that the Duke defenders are now looking at the ball, and someone turned their head and Tony Massenberg slipped behind.
Christian Leitner has checked in. And out goes John Smith. 2 shot fouls. Massenberg hitting at 60%. He's the leading scorer on the team. This is one. Had 24 points against Clemson.
Tony Massenberg has been not so much of a surprise, but he has been consistent. As a senior, he has been leading the front line of Maryland. He's taken an awful lot of pressure off of Gerard Mustaf.
And the score is 6-2, the Terrapins. And there's a third pass that has gone out of bounds as Duke has been on offense.
Well, one of the things that may have caused that errant pass is the fact that Tony Massenberg at the last second, recognizing Christian Leitner had position inside, flipped around in front.
Oh, here's a bad mistake from Maryland. Greg Nard stepped back over the center line. Backcourt violation belongs to Duke.
Now, Maryland has to face the fact that they don't have a true point guard right now, and Greg Nard, trying to call the play, stops at the wrong position and his foot steps back over the line. He's a leader, but they need a true point guard.
Robert Brickey makes it 6-4. Maryland has turned the ball over twice thus far, a backcourt violation and traveling violation against Clemson. They only had 5 turnovers in the game. Snyder knocks the ball out of the hands of Nard and out of bounds. Duke has had 3 turnovers today, all on bad passes, or at least passes that could not be caught. Were not caught.
Maryland's going to go back to a little bit of patience here on offense, keeping the ball in the middle, and that denies the help situations that Duke likes to put teams into.
And Duke playing very tough defense. They're all over everybody. Too much there. Quinn Snyder, who draws a foul. That's the 3rd team foul.
Quinn Snyder a bit shaken up on that play, but he got caught in the wrong position. Here, rather than being between his man and the ball, he gets caught behind and tries to reach for it.
Ryan Davis comes in replacing Snyder. Davis, a freshman out of Bladensburg, Maryland, is getting more and more playing time. He played 20 minutes against Notre Dame, and now Mustaf can't handle that, and Ferry picks it up for the Blue Devils, who can tie the game. The ball is off the hands of Nard and out of bounds.
Duke seems to be content with throwing the high pass, the lob, and trying to straight pass into the pivot rather than using the bounce pass, and Maryland's been getting their hands on a lot of passes.
Henderson. Ricky. Leitner inside, and Leitner is going to get that ball up if he can, and he cannot. And there's Dickerson with the rebound. Christian Leitner was just determined to shoot no matter what.
Despite the sag of Greg Nard, who was out at the top, but sagged in when the ball was thrown into the pivot.
Feed to Massenberg. Leitner's on him. Dickerson getting around Brickey and being bumped by Leitner, who took the shot at the other end in heavy traffic and now draws a foul at this end, the 4th team foul.
It's a good drive by Dave Dickerson. Leitner gets there too late. But Dickerson is attacking the basket a little more aggressively right now, particularly after the Clemson game when all 5 Maryland starters were in double figures.
Dickerson is in there because the freshman Walt Williams still bothered with that finger. Nard takes the shot, but there's another foul called, and I believe this is going to be on Maryland. And this will be the first. It'll be on Nard.
Nard took the ball to the basket in good shape, but he pushed off with his elbow, and referee Larry Lembo detected it.
6-4. Again, the Blue Devils have a chance to tie Maryland. 16-10 to go early in the first half.
Good job inside by Gerard Mustaf in fronting Danny Ferry.
Ryan Davis speeds to Abdelnaby, knocked out of bounds, and a foul called on Nard. That will be his second within seconds.
It's also a good decision by Robert Brickey. Here Ferry's being fronted, and that takes away from Mustaf's ability to help in the middle. Brickey recognized, and that takes it to the basket, penetrates, and puts a lot of pressure on the back line, and he was able to dish it off to Abdelnaby, who drew the foul.
Well, Henderson gets the rest. Quinn Snyder, one of the co-captains, along with Danny Ferry, comes back in.
It's one of the things you have to do in this league, particularly with all the defenses that get thrown at you. You have to take what the defense gives you, and you have some options. That time, Robert Brickey made a wise decision.
Abdelnaby, nearly 70% from the line. It is 6-5 Maryland. Ball game at 6. It was 5-0. Now it's 6-6.
Here Duke is extending their man-to-man pressure. We'll see how Greg Nard holds up under this pressure. One thing we mentioned earlier is that you can't, as a point guard, take the ball into the wrong spots against pressure, particularly against Duke. You can't take it into the corner.
Johnson, Davis is all over him. But Johnson gets by Davis, and now there's a charge against Johnson.
Well, John Johnson
again, and there's Mr. Tom Brokaw. And why is the NBC man here? Well, because his daughter's a student at Durham, Duke University. Abdelnaby tries to put him ahead. It is off the front of the basket, and John Johnson comes down with it.
Maryland doing a good job of blocking out. That time Duke had no one on the offensive board.
Look at Johnson. Gets the rebound at one end, the basket at the other. He's got 5 of the 8 Maryland points.
And that was a good no call by the official. Danny Ferry parked underneath the basket, and you really can't draw an offensive foul from that position.
Richard Dickerson laying off him a little bit. Ferry's taken but one shot, feeds in here, followed by Abdelnaby. The shot was missed by Davis. Abdelnaby puts it in. We're tied at 8.
And we see that it's the penetration that forces Maryland to give up rebounding position. Once someone penetrates to the basket, it's open field for the Duke offensive rebounders.
Feed right to Abdelnaby. That was not the intended man. Mustaf was. Duke has not yet led. They're tied at 8 and they have the basketball.
Good job by Mustaf.
Oh, look at that pass, and Ferry has 4 points now, and Duke has the lead now.
I was just going to give credit to Mustaf for closing in on Ferry to force him to give the ball up, but once he closed in, he turned his head, and Ferry, cutting without the ball, does an excellent job.
Ball is backcourt, but it was knocked backcourt by Quinn Snyder. And that's too aggressive a defense there for Brian Davis. And that is team foul number 5. Abdelnaby has one, Snyder, Leitner, Smith, and now Davis.
And I'm sure the instruction from Mike Krzyzewski to Brian Davis was, look, Brian, you've got position, you've got good defensive position. He can't hurt you from 30 feet from the basket. There's no need to reach in that situation. Something that Brian Davis will learn and improve upon as time goes on.
John Smith is back in. Henderson is back in as Nard takes the shot, and there's a good rebound there by Robert Brickey. Duke by 2, looking to extend. They beat Maryland by 10 early at College Park. Henderson will bring the ball back out.
I tell you, as time goes on, Jim, Maryland has got Duke playing their type of basketball game.
All-the-way shot hit the side, but Henderson is there, and they're going to call goaltending. Give the basket to Phil Henderson, his first.
Well, that wasn't a great decision by Gerard Mustaf. The ball is up on the rim. But as I was stating, Maryland has gotten Duke to play its particular brand, a slow-tempo type of game, more deliberate. Duke has got to go into their offensive pattern now rather than run and get easy baskets in transition.
There's another steal, and ball is loose and comes back out. Maryland, Brickey underneath.
And just as we speak, that's the type of game Duke wants to play. They want to make steals and get in the transition game because they know they have the runners like Robert Brickey.
Bob Wade calls timeout. Why not? Since it was tied at 5, Duke has scored 14 points and Maryland but 3 over the last 14 points and lead by 6. Maryland will inbound the basketball trailing by 6, 14 to 8. 13 to go in the first half. Terrapins hoping this won't get away. Duke playing some of the best basketball in the country now after having been number 1 for 9 weeks. Then came the back injury to Ferry. Actually sat out a game. And Duke fell, losing 4 games in the ACC. That's Johnson. They get the ball over. It's going to be another turnover. Bricky's got an easy shot coming up, and he takes it.
Well, what makes that play is, one, Maryland doesn't have a true point guard who can lead the team by keeping his dribble and calling out instructions. John Johnson picks up his dribble and allows the Duke defenders to swarm over him, and the other guys are just covering up the passing lanes.
Maryland, as we said at the beginning, looking for respect. At the moment, they're looking now to make sure there is no panic. Another turnover. That is the 9th turnover for Maryland. They only had 4 against Clemson in the entire game.
And I believe it's the 4th straight turnover by the backcourt, which again points up that weakness against the pressure man-to-man defense.
Ricky outside. Snyder, another Ferry. Here's Ferry again. Mustaf has been on him. Shooting over Mustaf. Not there, and it is Nard. There's Johnson, and he'll slow it down. Maryland, remember, must be patient even though they're down by 8 points. Henderson all over Johnson, drawing no foul, takes the shot. He had Mustaf open for a pass and elected to put the ball in the air.
Well, you know, that's the hesitancy. That's the problem. John Johnson recognized
nothing to do with it. Panic has set in. They let Snyder just go right down the lane. No one picked him up.
Well, mentally, Maryland is starting to fall into the depths of doldrum right now. They're thinking on defense about what they did on offense, and that time, Quinn Snyder just walked right in.
Walt Williams, the freshman with the injured finger, is getting up and will come in as Bob Wade is looking for help from somewhere. There's Mustaf over Ferry. No, and there's the rebound by John Smith. And here comes Duke again. They've outscored Maryland 18 to 3 since this game was scored at 5. Watching them play, look at this. Ferry, yes, that's for 2.
And Gerard Mustaf shakes his head in amazement. But the fact is, he didn't get any help with Ferry popping off the pick. That's one of his favorite shots. And you've got to at least deny the pass inside.
Nard to Mustaf off his hands, right to Henderson to feed to Snyder. And this ball game is well getting out of hand. It has been a 22 to 3 spurt now by Duke. It was 5-0 Maryland and 5 all. Now it is 22 to 8.
And Duke really riles the crowd up with the hand slapping of the ground. It's almost a Pavlovian condition. When they slap the ground, their defense gets tougher.
No good there. The shot taken by Dave Dickerson, and the man on the floor will get up to the realization, Henderson, that he has drawn the foul. His first.
And Mike Krzyzewski was a bit miffed at that particular call and got a technical foul for his efforts there.
Well, Krzyzewski, well, if you're going to get a technical foul, you like to do it to inspire your team, or at least do it when your team is up by 14 on a real run.
Yes, that was quite a strategic technical.
It is on the Duke bench, and they're going to send out Nard, I do believe, to do the free throw shoot. No, it'll be Johnson.
Well, the technical was on the Duke bench. Mike Krzyzewski was up. He was one of the only people standing at that time. That's why I thought it was upon him.
That is 6 of the 9 points that have been scored by John Johnson. It has been almost 5 minutes since Maryland has had a field goal. Now Maryland will inbound the ball after the technical.
Well, Coach K is looking maybe for his second technical. He's really upset at the fact that the call was made on the bench. I'm sure he's asking to identify who was the person who made the mistake.
Whoops. Johnson misses that.
And I believe the second technical, or actually the first technical, may have been because Mike Krzyzewski was out of the box.
Johnson now 3 out of 4 from the line. It is 22-11, and the Terrapins will get the ball back.
Well, Maryland
Williams is in with that splint on the little finger of his left hand. He's got a splint, but he's got a bandage covering most of his hand, and you just wonder how effective he can be with that hand. Broke it against Missouri. They said he would be out at least 4 weeks, about 7 games. He's not been out that long. Played less than a minute, just seconds, against Clemson. Bob Wade now at the bench with Krzyzewski. So it is Nard, Johnson, Massenberg, Mustaf, and Walt Williams, which is their starting 5 until Williams got hurt.
I believe there may be an argument as to the substitution of Walt Williams in after the technical foul shot. But looking at Walt Williams, I find it difficult to believe that a player can be effective at all, because I have a feeling they're going to force Walt Williams to go to his left.
They're talking about the fact, Len, that there's only one technical. Number 23, Dickerson, was the man who was fouled, and Johnson took all of the foul shots. So they will have a discussion here with 10:23 to go, and Duke leading. They've doubled the score of the Terrapins, 22-11. Ryan Davis remains in for Duke, along with Christian Laettner, who has come in. Snyder is in. Abdelnaby is in. So the first 2 shots of Johnson take those off the board and make the score 22-9. And I would assume they'll put Dickerson at the line and then allow Johnson for the technical and then go. Well, let's see what happens. Let them sort it out.
Well, I guess in the midst of the technical foul and the crowd screaming, we did kind of forget that there was a foul call on the play. And the foul was not against John Johnson.
Bob Wade still talking. Well, what's the play? Now, remember, Dickerson is the man who is fouled.
Narrowed with a nice pass, almost a give and go. Dickerson, seeing the defender fall, takes the shot. Phil Henderson comes underneath him, and there's where the foul is called. And immediately after that, the technical was called.
All right, now, Dickerson will shoot. Some of the real oddities. Got one. That's his first point.
Well, Mike Krzyzewski is saying what's fair is fair. Dickerson was fouled. He deserved the opportunity.
And he only gets one of the 2. Now they'll allow Johnson's technical to stand. And so Maryland loses 1 point on the play, but they still got the ball. And now the score is 22-10.
And also now the substitution of Walt Williams, it becomes more of a legal substitution in this instance because Dave Dickerson has now completed his responsibility.
Bob Wade still talking. And here we go. Just wonder how well Walt Williams can catch the ball with that cast and splint on his left hand. As Johnson forces the shot off the glass and gets it, and John Johnson is doing the best job by far. He's got 8 of the 12 Maryland points.
Well, John Johnson was pretty fortunate just then because he did get the ball in good shape and turn and have a wide open 15-footer, but he elected to dribble into traffic, but he made the shot.
Ball knocked away. There's Johnson. Massenberg showing patience and Duke showing defense. Nard with little to go. Now it comes out to Johnson.
Maryland stopped picking on the weak side. They can't get people open right now, and that's putting a lot of pressure on the people handling the ball.
14 seconds on the shot clock. In underneath off the hands of Williams. He's only got that one good hand, remember, but it is picked up by Mustaf.
Maryland content to use all of the 45-second clock, but that's not the kind of shot that they want after whittling it down 40 seconds worth.
And it was Williams who had to take the shot. Off balance one-handed. 22-12 Duke. 9 minutes to go, and the Blue Devils have the basketball. Snyder for 3. Oh. out of it comes John Johnson. And off the floor, picking himself up, is Brian Davis.
Maryland getting a little testy right now because Duke is a bit pesty on the boards. They're all over you.
Again, Maryland using the patience that Len said they would need. That was almost a foul there on Leitner. Reaching in. Johnson.
Maryland is doing a good job of keeping the ball out of the corners and negating the trap. But out in the middle, they just can't get anyone open, and they have to settle for 25-foot jump shots like that, and that's not going to bring them back.
Johnson's miss is grabbed by Abdul Nabi, and Quinn Snyder brings the ball up court. 22-7. Duke has outscored Maryland since the game was tied at 5 now. There's Davis, and there's a hold on Walt Williams, the freshman. Ball will be inbounded, and Duke is making some changes. Henderson coming back in, Bricky coming in, Kubek coming in for the first time. Smith is out. Though it is Ferry, Abdul Nabi, Henderson, Kubek, and Bricky back in. Maryland does not have the luxury of making wholesale substitutions, hardly a substitution at all. When they went to the bench, he went to an injured man in Walt Williams. Henderson for 3. No, right into the hands of Walt Williams.
Now let's see if this trip Maryland will start moving without the ball, setting picks for each other, and help the guy handling it.
Gee, that was a good play by Bricky defensively. Good play, and it'll go to Duke on the tie-up.
I know you've mentioned it before, but just the fact that Greg Merritt is not a natural guard, he can't take his eyes off the dribble and look at his men and try to move the ball around.
7:46 to go at Duke Indoor Stadium. Duke 22.
Of Walt Williams with that splint on his hand. Here's a nice pass inside, but he's really protecting that left hand. And as I say, you really can't do anything inside as a big man unless you have your hands together, unless both hands are operative. And as I said, I have a feeling that Duke is going to force Walt Williams to use that left hand in some manner. He's out there more for defense than anything else.
Believe it or not, it has been more than 3 minutes, and is still more than 3 minutes since Duke has last scored a field goal, even though they lead by 10. Coming up on the 4-minute mark for them. Johnson, a wild feed, but it went off the hip of one of the Duke players. Maryland, with those 4 turnovers total against Clemson, has 11 here. And on the 4 Duke turnovers, they've only had 3 points as a result. On the 11 turnovers of Maryland, Duke has picked up 14 points, and that's more than the difference in the ball game. Massenberg has been absolutely negated. Williams on a strong drive there with that hand, and down on the floor, it is Abdul Nabi who draws his second personal foul.
That time Walt Williams saw the opening inside after Tony Massenberg missed the cutting Gerard Mustaff to the basket. The fact of the matter is, you've got to make this guy catch the ball by putting pressure on him. Nice move by Williams. Abdul Nabi just stepped underneath him.
2 shots for Williams, who was a below 50% free throw shooter when he didn't have. Well, that left hand should not bother him too much here, except perhaps mentally, and it does not, but that's his first point, and well, I guess since the Missouri game. 22-13.
And Jim, when you speak mentally, speak of mental approach to the foul shooting, the fact is sometimes when you have an injury such as that to Walt Williams, you concentrate more. You're trying to compensate for the loss of the use of that hand, and it works.
22-14, Maryland is within 8. Henderson in backcourt. 7:09 to go. Johnson tries for the reception there, and from outside, Bricky takes the shot and will get his own rebound, and decides against taking a second shot in a row.
And you can't say enough about the interior defense of Gerard Mustaff. He has really taken Danny Ferry out of the game on the inside. Now, Danny Ferry goes outside such as this, and he becomes very effective. But inside, he can't buy the ball.
And that's 9 points. And it was about 4 minutes between field goals for Duke. But Ferry comes up with a 3-pointer, and it's 25-14. There is Massenberg for his first shot in close. And Massenberg now has 3 points total, 25-16.
Good recognition of the defense by Tony Massenberg. He didn't rush it up there. He turned and saw where the defenders were before he made his move.
Ferry, Henderson underneath. Block, Ball does not go in. Foul call.
Well, when you get caught off balance like Tony Massenberg did, the one thing you don't want is to have the offensive player get the ball up to the basket. That was almost a three-point play there.
Cedric Lewis, well, he's like Walt Williams. He's hurt, too. He's got a sprained ankle. He's been out the last 2 games. He has come into Mustaf as getting a rest. Henderson goes to the line, shooting 70% from there. Now Smith comes back in. Lubeck goes out.
Sorry, these 2 substitutions by Maryland are very crucial because it allows some of the frontline players to get a rest. These are guys who played the whole game against Clemson just about, maybe for 2 or 3 minutes, and it can wear on a team over a period of a week or 2 if you have to play just 5 guys.
Duke has used 8 men, 9 men so far. Maryland has used 7. 2 of those are injured. Williams with a bad hand and Lewis with a sprained ankle. Well, they've got 2 of their walking wounded in the lineup now among their first 5. 27-16. There's a feed, but an interception alertly by Henderson. Ball intended for Johnson in underneath. Berry gets the ball back out to Snyder. Brickey, foul by Williams. His second foul.
And Walt Williams is claiming he had both hands in the air. What else could I do? But the contact was made.
16 foul.
16 foul. Duke is over the limit. But this is a shooting foul for Brickey, who has 6 points, all from the floor.
Looked like Williams had pretty good position, and Brickey leaned into him. But again, there was contact, and the official saw it the other way.
Brickey now has 7 points to go with his 3 rebounds. 5:50 left in the first half. Very quiet crowd because since it was 5-0 and then tied at 5, it has been all Blue Devils. The ball is knocked away but is kept in by Massenberg. And here comes Nard. This time, he's showing just modest pressure down court.
We saw Greg Nard wave Tony Massenberg away. Maryland lately has been leaving someone, particularly a big man, in the middle for pressure release.
Williams trying to carry the ball in, and it was knocked out of bounds by Brickey as he went by.
Now, by pressure release, I mean when Duke goes to pretty good pressure on the ball handler, you leave a big guy, particularly trailing back, so that you can hit him and run a give and go to allow the guard to get free again.
Massenberg will be short there, and Brickey's got his 4th rebound. Duke by 12, an uncommonly quiet crowd at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Henderson is simply allowed to drive the baseline and get the easy 2. 30-16.
And in doing so, there was no help from the Maryland defenders. Most of the Maryland defenders were up near the middle of the paint there.
30-16, 5 minutes to go and counting. Williams driving and shooting and no good, and ball comes down to Smith. Maryland, a picture of shooting frustration, and Duke has always been a good shooting team, and this year that's Smith, and that's just for 2. He's a good 3-point shooter, but that's 2-point range. Duke has been shooting and could set a new ACC record. They're nearly 56% before today in shooting from the floor. Well over 50% in their last 3 games. Massenberg off balance, no good. Comes right down off the hands of Ferry Johnson. He's going to take the shot, no good. And let's see, it is Massenberg, and he's going to draw the foul. Trying to get rid of the ball, I think, simply as Snyder fouled him to get a shooting foul out of it all.
But it's great second effort by Tony Massenberg inside. A couple of missed opportunities by Maryland. The fact is, Maryland now is content with trying to beat Duke off the dribble. That is, make a drive to the basket once you have the defense spread. The only problem is Duke isn't allowing them to get in all the way to the basket. The Maryland players have to pull up and take these leaners, which are off-balance jump shots, and they've been missing an awful lot. But the way to correct that is to crash the boards, just as Tony Massenberg did.
Brian Davis replaces Quinn Snyder. Massenberg 1 for 2 from the line, and now has 4 points. 32-16. With the exception of the first several minutes, it has been a breather for the Blue Devils. Maryland trying to make it a competitive game. Line called. Mustaf is coming back in for Maryland, and Massenburg will now get a rest. Bob Witt is doing just what you said, Leno Moore, and that is all these folks played the full 40 against Clemson, and he's trying to get them rested here for a second half. And an effort here later in this first half, which only has 4:10 to go. Duke by 14. Ferry is determined, and that's a good defensive play, but they say, no, Cedric Lewis, you have drawn the foul. For a moment, I thought Lewis had the hand on the ball.
Well, Lewis is in good shape right now. Stays on his feet, doesn't go for the fakes. I think Cedric Lewis was in pretty good position for that particular play. You get your hand on the ball, and then all bets are off because now you've got a piece of possession as well. It just was maybe a confrontation between Danny Ferry, the All-American, and Cedric Lewis, the player coming off the bench for Maryland, but he got the worst end of it, Cedric Lewis.
Ferry now has 10 points, 1 for 2 from the line, 15-point lead, as the clock ticks under 4 minutes in the first half. Maryland using the clock, but Duke playing fine defense, and now there's a good play, and right off the hands of Mustaf, who keeps it alive and is picked up by Cedric Lewis. Nard, three-point try. No. Brickey with yet another rebound. That's 5 for Robert Brickey, who also has 7 points.
Lost opportunity by Maryland. Nard penetrated well, but then kicked it off too quickly. Too much of a rush.
Now Duke content, whistle underneath, and I do believe they're pointing at number 43, Cedric Lewis, for his second. And as many seconds practically.
Well, Lewis gets tangled up here with the pick by Robert Brickey. At that time, it looked as though he was holding Danny Ferry. I mean, good acting by Ferry, but the fact is that the defender, the one guarding Robert Brickey, has got to call out the picks, help Cedric Lewis out, let him know, where the defender is, where the picker is, so that he can get around it in much better shape.
Brickey, a preseason All-ACC selection, has 7 points. Still 7 points, and that may have gone off the hands of Lewis, but they say no off Danny Ferry. Time has been called. 3:20 to go. And at this moment, it is all Duke. They're leading by 15. For Stadium, Bob Wade talks to his ball club that now has 12 turnovers, 3 times as many as they had against Clemson last week. And Greg Nard, who is playing the point this afternoon, has 7 of those 12 turnovers. It's 33-18. And Maryland rooters know that when Maryland has trailed at halftime, they've only won 1 of 11 games, and with 3:10 to go to the half, they're down by 15 points here. Dickerson. Dave Dickerson.
Nice job of Dickerson taking what the defense gives him. He had the baseline. Danny Ferry was again underneath the basket, attempting to draw the foul. Dickerson pulled up in nice shape.
2:53 to go, and Maryland will try to do what a lot of folks on the road try to do, and that is get within 10. Brickey goes up, and I wonder how they allowed that, because he went up and came down and went up again.
Well, the ball hit the rim, and Brickey still had possession of it. But he's sneaking along their baseline, and the Maryland back defenders, the guys in the front court, have to be aware of what's going on.
Mustaf, yes. That's his second basket, 4 points. 35-22. Normally, well, not normally, but usually, Mustaf has a good half, and then Massenburg has a good half, or vice versa. Neither one is having a scoring half here so far. Feed in, and from behind, Dickerson clobbers Danny Ferry.
And Dickerson's got to get there a step quicker, recognizing that Mustaf is fronting Danny Ferry. Here he does a good job of fronting Ferry. Ferry loses contact nicely, but Dickerson just a step late. You've got to be there and anticipate that pass. If you're going to make Duke do anything, make him throw the skip pass over the defense to the corner and force the outside shot rather than give up the sure foul or 2 points to Danny Ferry inside.
11 points for Danny Ferry, about half his scoring average, which leads the ACC, 36-22. And yet another. Again, it's the 15-point lead for Duke. Nard throwing an elbow in the direction of Brian Davis, trying to keep him away. That's a tenacious defense that Duke is throwing up. Thoroughly befuddled Virginia earlier this weekend, is befuddling Maryland here, and there's a walk there by Mustaf, his second walk of the game.
That time Maryland got into their offense in nice shape despite the pressure by Duke. But again, indecisiveness. Mustaf at the top made the decision to drive probably after he thought over passing to the wing and cutting. And when you have that indecisiveness, you make mistakes.
The 13th turnover for the Terrapins. Smith. Yes, and he's fouled.
Well, again, when you're a defender and you get caught off balance like that, the one thing you don't want to happen is for the shooter to get the ball off. That time, Tony Mastenberg, recognizing he was off balance, tried to regain his composure in that instance. And that time, he also allowed John Smith to get the ball off. If you know you're going to foul and make contact, keep the ball from going to the basket.
Len, you said that the Blue Devils wanted to score 80 or 90 points today. They're on track to at least do that. And Maryland will be hard-pressed to score 50 the way they're going. Smith misses the chance for the three-point. It's 39-22 with 1:40 to go. And ladies and gentlemen, Maryland's got its problems, but Duke is back after losing 4 games in the conference. Oh my, there's a foul there, but they're not going to call it, I do believe. It looked like Maryland had clobbered John Smith.
Well, I mean, it's good, hard play, but I believe it was John Smith on this instance. Once he goes after the ball, he kind of gives the body to Dave Dickerson inside. But a good no call by the officials. Both guys were going after the ball. There was nothing malicious about that.
17-point lead is the biggest. This ball will go out of bounds, and it is off the foot or the knee of Dave Dickerson, who argues, and Bob Wadison, get back in there. We have so few folks. Please don't draw a technical or get yourself thrown out of the game.
Well, if you take a look at Dave Dickerson, he's still feeling his head. He's still thinking about that play with John Smith. And what that should do for the Maryland players is make them aware that Duke is playing physically and cleanly, and they have to do the same thing. Dickerson has got to keep his head in the ball game.
14 turnovers for Maryland, only 4 for Duke, and Duke has hit 5 of its last 6 field goals. 39-22, shot clock is not yet off. We're winding down to 1 minute in this lopsided first half in Durham. Berry, Brickey cannot hold on to that bounce pass, and now they got a 4-on-2. Here's Mustaf off the glass, and that'll be Brickey for goaltending. Or is it a foul? Will they give him? Nope. It's a foul before the goaltender.
Nice look-away pass by Nard. That time, Mustaf pulls up. Rather than draw the offensive foul, a contact was made. Here from another angle, Mustaf is in the air before the defender is set on that particular play, but it could have gone either way. Nard made maybe the bad decision in not giving the ball to the runner on the right side who had a clearer lane to the basket. And the call does go against Gerard Mustaf.
That's his first.
As I mentioned, the call could go either way because once a player takes off, a defender probably should have his position established. At least that's the way I see it.
Greg Kubek, number 22 on the line for Duke.
1-1 for Greg Kubek. (40-22), the 18-point lead. 7 out of 10, 9 out of 12. Both teams shooting well from the free throw line. And a whistle blows again underneath.
Well, what's
violation, so we'll get another shot.
Maryland is starting to lose their composure, as I said. That time Mustaf is so intent not only in blocking out Danny Ferry, but maybe to get a piece of him for all the other contact that's gone on so far. You know, granted, the Maryland players are mad, but they've got to take that aggression and focus it into some effective play on the other end of the court, and that's something they haven't been able to do today so far.
Maryland has won its last 2 games in a row, including their first ACC game against Clemson earlier this week. But today they come down to the Duke Indoor Stadium, where they won in an upset by 3 last year, 72-69. They'll play for the last shot, and they have run into a Blue Devil buzzsaw. Duke leads by 18. They've outscored Maryland 40-17 since the game was tied at 5. Williams takes the shot. That's his 3rd shot, all no good. For that one-handed ability with, whoops, Kubek to be called with a charge.
That time Kubek, in trying to gather himself, leaned forward and gave a shoulder to Greg Nard. Maryland got back in good shape on that particular transition basket.
7 seconds to go in the half. Maryland will have to push it up. Practice now starts. 4-3. Nard from outside, way short. Kubek's got it. He'll try a long shot, which sometimes works, but that time does not. And Bob Wade, a beleaguered Bob Wade, goes to the locker room with his team trailing by 18 at the half. Statistics brought to you by U.S. Air.
Well, in the situation of Maryland, glaringly 35% field goal shooting as opposed to Duke's 60%. Maryland's problem is they can't get into an offensive scheme. They got poor movement without the ball, and that leaves the person with the ball unprotected and open to being double teamed. The other area in free throws, both teams getting to the line fairly regularly. Maryland 7 out of 11, Duke 9 of 14. But again, it's Duke's transition game that's really opening up for easy layups and wide open jump shots. Maryland's turnovers also are a key factor, and that points up to the fact that there's just no ball leadership out there. There is no natural point guard for the Terps, and consequently they just can't get their offense moving.
And you can see Danny Ferry leads all scorers with 12 points, and Bob Rickey has 5 rebounds to go with his 9 points. The Terrapins started out with 3 field goals in their first 4 attempts, and then went 4 of their next 16. It's 40-22, and when the Maryland Terrapins have been trailing at halftime by no matter whether 1 or 18 points as they are here, they've been very unsuccessful, only winning 1 of the previous 11 games. All belongs to Maryland, and Nard with Snyder on him.
I think at halftime, Maryland probably was told by Coach Bob Wade, you know, you still have to stay in the same plan. You got to spread and move without the ball, which they're doing now, but you got to quicken the shot.
Johnson gets him on the board, and he now leads with 10 points. The Maryland scorers.
Scheme about running the clock down a bit. You got to throw that out the window unless Maryland can close this lead.
Rickey? No. And a foul on the way in. I believe it's on Tony Massenberg. And that is who it is on, and that'll be his 3rd. They can ill afford to lose anyway.
And particularly Tony Massenberg, who's been an anchor on defense for the Terrapins, as well as pretty steady and consistent inside scoring and rebounding. But that was just much too easy. Rickey broke out for the ball in good shape, and as Massenberg closed on him, he used Massenberg's momentum against him by taking him to the basket.
Rickey fails on the first. Remember the other night, North Carolina went in with such a big deficit at North Carolina State, they had to throw their game plan and J.R. Reed's participation almost out of the window. They just had to change around, and there's another turnover, the 15th turnover, 2-on-1. Henderson takes it all the way.
Well, each time Maryland makes a mistake such as that of Nard's, they wind up giving a transition basket because there's no one back to defend.
And Nard turns the ball over for the 8th time as he double dribbles. It's 43-24, 19-point lead, and Ferry inbounds.
Well, on the last play, after Nard made the poor decision of giving the ball up rather than driving straight to the hole, there was no one back to defend. Easy bucket for Duke.
There's another easy bucket by Rickey, who now has 12 points to match Danny Ferry's top mark.
Duke is getting far too many baskets inside the paint. Each time, Robert Rickey's breaking out to the free throw line in good shape.
Massenberg, and tipped in by Mustaf, who now has 6 points.
Good follow by Mustaf. That ball had no chance to go in, and Mustaf followed it up nicely.
Duke, which has been taking its lumps, goes on the road Tuesday to play at Harvard, then get Kansas here next week. So they're out of the conference before resuming with Georgia Tech on Monday the 20th. Shot from outside by Ferry, no good. Rickey's got yet another rebound. And they'll start all over again. Maryland goes home on Valentine's Day to play Georgia Tech, and then gets North Carolina a week from Sunday. Ferry shoots, and yes, Danny Ferry now has 14 points. 47-26.
Tony Massenberg had to switch out on Danny Ferry after the Maryland got their man-to-man set up, but he gave it somewhat of a half-hearted attempt there after the fake.
There's another turnover, I do believe. Nope, they're going to save one off one of the Duke men. Passing underneath. Maryland has been forced to use Cedric Lewis coming off a sprained ankle. And Walt Williams, who still has a splint and cast on the left hand from his broken finger. Nard found some open area for the moment, misses. The ball goes off the hands of Dave Dickerson and out of bounds. Well, Duke University, 5-4 in the conference, plays 2 games after this, Harvard and Kansas, before getting back into conference play a week from Monday. Ferry, the feed to Henderson, who's loose for a 3-point try. And they're saying, nope, his foot was on the line. That's only 2 points, but 10 points total for Henderson, 49-26. And there's a feed intercepted by John Smith.
Poor angle for a pass inside. John Johnson could have dribbled down to the corner, but elected to stay up top and allowed the defender to whip around and slap the ball away.
Brickey has the ball knocked away from him. Maryland was so confident and so thrilled after its win over Clemson, but they come back down to earth here. Johnson, with a great individual effort, now has 12 points.
But you see, what happens is you really, after one win like that, you still can't forget the many losses that preceded that win. And Maryland right now, they're down so far. They look like a beaten team. It's going to take a real spurt for them to realize they can still come back if they put forth an effort. But they've got to go out and play defense, and what they're doing now is not the type of defense that Bob Way is happy with.
Well, they were entirely off Danny Ferry. There was a three-pointer, 5 points in this half, and 17 altogether. Johnson almost lost the ball on the dribble, gets it into Mustaf, who does lose the ball, gets it back, lost it again, belongs to Duke. 52-28, and we've got better than 16 minutes to play. Duke is on a pace to score a bundle of points.
Well, the exuberance of youth, Mustaf was in too much of a hurry that time. He had the players faked out of position and had an opportunity to score a layup, but he did rush it.
We remember that Duke scored 102 points 2 games ago against Notre Dame at Notre Dame. They had 100 against William & Mary and 117 against Miami, a game in which Danny Ferry had 58 points. Duke continues its hot shooting, 60% for the half. They're 5 of 6 here in the second half. Dickerson takes a seat.
Bob Wade is going to struggle to find the right combination. Whether his team closes the gap or not, he's got to find 5 guys who are willing to set forth the effort in playing some tighter defense than they're playing right now. Too many points and shots in the paint, just like that one.
Henderson, 6 points in this half, 12 altogether. And Duke has a 26-point lead. We talked before the game. There is Lewis for a shot, and it's no good. Had no chance, followed by Mustaf, and he is fouled. Talked before the game about the pressures on Bob Wade and all of the media attention in Washington, D.C. And then what happened with Clemson quieted that for a moment. Now with the score 54-28, you can see the little computers, used to be typewriters, the little word processors get going again. Martin is going to make his first appearance. Jesse Martin comes in, a freshman. And out comes Nard.
So I mentioned this really does take its toll on a team. Sure, after that type of controversy, you can come back and maybe win one for the coach, so to speak. But afterwards, reality sets in. And each time you face some adversity, that's one more thing to heap on that pile. And the Maryland players, if you look in their faces right now, they can be a defeated team by virtue of the controversy and the fact that they fall behind in this game.
Mustaf with 6 points, 0 for 1 from the line. This is his first trip. It's that. 15:35 to go. Duke leads by 25.
Projection. The fact is, Mike Krzyzewski has said over and over, he likes his teams to start peaking in February. One-loss record is not what counts, but how well they perform, how effective they are going into NCAA tournament time. And as I said, they've been playing as well as I've seen them play.
Ball belongs to Maryland. Remember, a year ago, Duke was 9-5 in the conference, but won the tournament and wound up 28-7 overall as they went on to the NCAA. Maryland must be patient. They can't afford the up-tempo game. They've not got the bench, the stamina to do it. But they are in a situation where they're down 25 points.
And in that last timeout, Bob Wade, I'm sure, is telling his players, look, you got to be respected out here. Go out and execute. Have some pride as to what you're doing.
Mustaf tied up and fouled by Snyder.
If you combine those things will take care of themselves, if not this year, maybe next year. But you've got to become accustomed to moving the ball and doing the things you're supposed to. Here, a little hop step by Mustaf. He may have gotten away with that in the Metro Leagues in D.C., but they'll call it in the ACC.
Here's Ferry and a correction. There was no foul against Snyder. Of course, at the other end, there was a turnover engineered on good defense by Snyder. Let's see. 4-7, 19 points for Danny Ferry. He had 22 total against Maryland. At Maryland when the Blue Devils won by 10. Johnson, one of the few bright spots. Jesse Martin feeds, and that's a good feed to Massenberg right there. And Massenberg gets only his second basket. Between him and Mustaf, they only have 5 baskets between them, and they're the big guns. 56-31, 14 minutes to go. And from the side, Smith, a good three-pointer, misses that one, picked up by Mustaf.
And the play before from Maryland offensively, that's the kind of execution that can make a team and individual players feel good about themselves.
Good lead pass by Johnson, who's playing the point now with Martin, the off guard, and Nard out of the game. Martin, who's been forced to bring up the ball many times, played the post in high school. Here's a freshman playing a guard situation.
That's a difficult transition to make because now you're facing the basket. You've got to keep your dribble and watch everything that's going on. Whereas as a post player, you're not really dribbling the ball and looking for cutters. You're holding on to it. And it's a difficult transition to make, and Jesse Martin's going to take a while before he's really acclimated to playing out front.
John Smith draws his third foul. Leitner is in. Kubek is in. Davis is in. Ferry stays in, along with Snyder. And again, the whistle blows. There's a foul against Maryland. The ball belongs to Duke. And the foul is on Jesse Martin, his first.
Well, the Maryland players have yet to realize that Duke is not going to give them penetration all the way to the basket off the dribble. The people who are getting to the basket are the cutters. And when the ball handler has it and he drives to the basket, sure, he's watching the hoop, but he's got to look for people cutting.
Ferry, look at that fake. Many fakes. Ball rolls around and in, and Martin draws yet another foul.
Well, that time in a crowd, Danny Ferry does what he can do best, and that's get people off balance. He's not a great leaper, but what he does is show the ball very well and gets the defenders off balance. Here, one fake, another, and he goes up with a double pump and winds up drawing the foul. But what happened was Jesse Martin flew by the first time, and in his aggressiveness going towards the ball handler, he winds up fouling on the double pump by Ferry.
Ferry 3 out of 4 from the line. Completes the three-point play. That is 10 points in this half, 22 for the ball game for the ACC's leading scorer, and it's 59-31, a 28-point lead, an embarrassment for the Terrapins of College Park. And there have been 20 turnovers and make it 21 turnovers. Snyder cannot pull off the behind-the-back pass to Brian Davis, and that's a turnover to Duke.
Well, you see Mike Krzyzewski on the sidelines clapping his hands, but I don't know. Sometimes showtime is necessary, sometimes it's not. That time, Quinn Snyder could have made the play without the hot dog movement. And, it may raise your crowd level, it may raise the enthusiasm of the team, but sometimes it's not necessary. It's almost like rubbing people's noses into it.
Martin goes out, Nard is in. There's a shot from the side by Johnson and a rebound by Christian Leitner. And here comes Duke. Davis. Leitner, head fake, puts it up. But he is walking with the ball. With a score of 59-31, it's not who, but by how much.
And I tell you, in plays like the one that Christian Leitner turned the ball over, Duke still has the luxury of allowing players like Leitner to work on certain moves. Here, Leitner faced up very well, put the ball on the floor.
Foul called. And I believe it is going to be on Quinn Snyder, and that'll be his third. Anderson coming in, Snyder coming out. Brickey, who had the good first half and early second half, coming in. Danny Ferry gets a rest. And a hand.
And now you will see some of the players that Duke may have to call on as this season progresses. The 6, 7, 8 men on the bench, they're going to be out here. And again, they're going to be working on the things that they have to be proficient at.
Nard puts it up, and the foul will be on Brian Davis, his second.
Duke foul on number 23.
There have been lopsided games in Cameron Indoor Stadium before, Len Elmore, but I don't recall a Duke student body being this quiet. And obviously it's because the game is not hotly contested. They are out of the game, but Maryland is too, down by 28 points.
And again, in a situation such as the one, the controversy that Maryland is in, a lot of people anticipated this type of blowout, particularly with Duke playing so well. And before we saw a shot of Phil Henderson calling the team together, he's going to tell his players, so we're up by this many points. Let's not lose our intensity. Let's work on the things that will make us better as time goes on. We use this as a building ground, so to speak, to get ourselves in a better position to play and contribute.
Greg Nard has scored his first point, and that's all he'll get as he misses the second shot, 59-32. Henderson guiding things now that Snyder's on the bench. There's the young freshman, Brian Davis, out of Bladensburg, Maryland, and the whistle blows for yet another foul.
Third team foul.
You know, you can look in the faces of the Maryland players again and detect some frustration as well, and I believe that's why the officials may still be calling it fairly close, because where there is frustration, there can be a little bit of anger, and you don't want the pushing and the shoving inside to lead to something more serious.
For John Johnson, his second foul. Quebec feeds Henderson for 3. Yes. Henderson now has 9 points in this half and 15 altogether, and it is a 30-point lead for Duke. Maryland has only 32 points. And Leitner throws the ball, but it is picked up by Lewis. And Johnson will try for 3, and it's off the front of the rim. And kept in by Mustache.
Well, Maryland is forgetting all the little things that you have to do, including meeting the ball.
Well, Maryland's getting all kinds of chances, and Mustache finally gets the basket and now has 9 points. They had 3 extra shots, 62-34.
You know, in games like this, it is easy to overlook the little things that you have to do, but those things become rote. They become habit if you do them, whether you're up by 30 or down by 30.
A good feed from Leitner to Kubek. Kubek gets his first basket and has 3 points. Outside, that is Mustache.
Now, Mustache is going to be a fine player of all ACC caliber.
64-37, Mustache has 3 points, and Kubek will try. No, and a foul is called.
Davis gave a little bump inside against John Johnson, trying to get good rebounding position.
That's his third. Well, a win is a good thing, a loss is a bad thing, but neither is that good or that bad unless you learn something from it, and both teams are trying to do that. 10:48 to go. Go 64-37 is the score. Maryland victimized by 22 turnovers, created largely by tenacious. Well, there's a three-pointer for Nard. Tenacious defense.
Well, you can look for Maryland to take a lot more of those before the end of this game. Excuse me, try to make it respectable.
Andy Ferry is back in the ball game, moving very well against Mustache and coming up with the points. That is a little 12 points in this half, Len. 24 together for Ferry.
Nice move by Danny Ferry, but you can't say enough about Gerard Mustache's defense. He played very well, keeping his feet.
Nard made another bad pass there. Williams tries to save it, but Henderson keeps it in. Snyder underneath. Brickey loses the ball away. Williams has it back. Twice this year, Maryland has only scored 51 points at South Carolina against Texas El Paso. On each occasion, they lost, once by 6, once by 18. Mustache going to try another three-pointers, no good, and Brickey's got yet another rebound.
Well, if Mustache's going to stay outside and shoot, somebody's got a rebound, and that time Maryland didn't cover the board very well.
9 1/2 minutes to go. 66-40. Ferry can't get the shot away. It was under the basket along the baseline. Nard almost walked with the ball there.
Maryland has a bang.
Williams. Nope. down on that hand, but he's okay, but misses the shot.
Maryland abandoned their spread offense to try to run their regular offense.
And a tip in by Brickey. After the missed shot by Henderson, Brickey 5 points in this half and 14 altogether.
And Duke just keeps on rolling.
Brickey has 10 rebounds, Len.
Off the turnovers. And Robert Brickey has been the trigger man.
Now he's going to try for another three-pointer. No good. Ball comes down to Ferry. He keeps it, but truthfully, Maryland was the more aggressive team under the basket then. There's a feed to Henderson from Brickey. 11 points in this half for Henderson, 17 altogether, and again the 30-point lead, 70-40 with 8.5 minutes to go. And time has been called by Maryland's Bob Wade. 8:27 left, 70-40. Duke leads Maryland here at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Maryland will inbound the ball.
Got to be careful right there. Dickerson got away maybe with stepping in bounds and touching the ball too quickly.
Lewis being tied up by Crawford Palmer, who has come in, number 34. He's a 6'9" freshman, and the shot is no good, and Leitner gets it. So Snyder's in there. Leitner, Henderson, Ferry, and Crawford Palmer. Another freshman from the Maryland College Park area over in Arlington, Virginia, not too many minutes from the College Park, Maryland campus.
Duke playing patiently, looking to get the ball into their big men.
Leitner gets the shot. His first points of the afternoon.
And I think Phil Henderson took a shot also of the physical variety.
Bending over there. While he does bend over, Danny Ferry's 24 points, 3 rounds, 2 assists. Henderson 17 points, 3 assists. Brickey 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists. On the other side of the ledger, Mustaff with 12 points, including a three-pointer, and 8 rebounds. Johnson 12 points and 3 rebounds. And Tony Massenberg, almost unheard of today, 7 points.
And against the pressure of a man-to-man, Maryland players seem to have difficulty seeing cutters. That's a good move right there. Good pass by Williams right there. But throughout this game, the Maryland passers, once they have their hands on the ball, are so concerned with the pressure that they don't have their heads up looking at the cutters. Some people have broken wide open and not gotten the ball.
Foul is going to be on Dave Dickerson as Crawford Palmer went to make his move. Palmer is a freshman at 6'9".
His first team's.
Henderson along the sidelines. He took quite a shot. It hurts, but I don't think it's anything serious, although he doesn't think that now. He thinks it hurts.
Well, against Virginia earlier this week, he took quite a fall underneath the basket and had the wind knocked out of him. And it looked kind of serious for a bit. It's 2 shots for 2 games. Bill doesn't want too much more of this.
Brian Davis gets his first points of the afternoon. 6:45 to go, and now it's Duke by 32. And Massenberg shoots, and Ferry gets a rebound. Down the other end, oh my, that's a deliberate foul charged against Massenberg as he clobbered Brian Davis.
And as I mentioned before, there are 2 ways to go after someone and not let the player get the ball up to the basket. One is the way in which you go after the ball and make a clean play, and the other is to go after the player. In this case, unfortunately, Tony Massenberg chose to go after the player and not the ball.
I think right there is the epitome of the frustration of the Terrapin team.
And we mentioned that earlier, that you could see it, and you could see it in certain moves when Mustaff jumped into the lane too soon, specifically to lay his body on Danny Ferry. When people are being pushed underneath the basket, you could see it happening, and it usually manifests itself in a play like that, which again could lead to a greater eruption. And officials did a great job of getting to the play in time and separating the players. And Robert Brickey, to his credit, although he walked towards Tony Massenberg, did keep his head, and it's something that all the players have to realize. And Bob Wade, at this point in time, makes a good decision to get Tony Massenberg out of the game.
This is the second. Brian Davis now has 3 points, but being the intentional foul by Massenberg, of course, the ball still belongs to Duke. And with that, Mustaff walked over and shook hands with Brian Davis as though to say, come on, we realize that was not right. This is a ball game. We respect one another. Let's play. 75-42. Brian Davis misses off the front. Almost tipped in by a Maryland player, and finally picked up by Dickerson, who must slow things down.
You see the swarming Duke defense. This is the type of defense that's allowed Maryland only 7 assists and forced 22 turnovers to this point.
Quinn Snyder's going to pick up his 4th personal foul as he fouled Johnson in the act of shooting. 6:18 to go. There's little or no mercy shown here in terms of too bad, Maryland, you're losing by 33, because remember, Maryland came in here last year and walked out winning by 3, 72-69, in one of the big upsets of the ACC season. John Smith comes in, and Snyder with 4 fouls will take a seat. Smith is 6'7", but he can hit the three-pointer. Snyder with 4 points has 5 assists and 4 personal fouls. Johnson now has 13 points. Ball game was 5-0 Maryland, then 5-all, then 6-6, and since then it's been the Blue Devils. (75-44).
Maryland playing for pride right now. Kind of puts a bit of full court pressure on the Blue Devils. The ones that are out on the floor right now are not the first line players. And maybe that will work. Maybe that'll get the Maryland players, a little more aggressive on the defensive end.
Smith short on his three-point attempt, but right there was Crawford Palmer, and he missed. Oh my, almost a shot to the face there of Brian Davis by Cedric Lewis.
But in a case like that, that was a play in which Lewis is trying to protect the ball, and he's certainly entitled to that particular move.
Mustaf goes up. He is fouled. And they're pointing at Clay Buckley, who's just come into the game. We all know about his father, Jay Buckley, also of Duke fame. Mustaf 1 for 2 to the line, and let's see, he's got 4, 6, 8, 12 points. Goes to the line. 5:44 left.
Now, Gerard Mustaf, as I've mentioned before, is capable of being all ACC caliber in the next couple of years. He's the guy that Maryland's going to rely on in the future, and it's games like this. I can see why Bob Wade wants to leave him in the game. It's games like this where he'll cut his teeth on what it is that's necessary to be a big-time forward in college basketball. There are certain things that he has to do better, but overall, the guy's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of quickness up front, and it's something that Danny Ferry had to contend with today, because I think Mustaf did an excellent job defensively against Ferry, despite the fact that Ferry did score. Most of it was from outside.
And they talk about the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. This is one of those days of agony. There's Buckley. The ball is blocked away by Dickerson, but out of bounds. It belongs to Duke. One of the days where you have the agony of defeat and will make the thrill of victory, that day, when it does come, just that much sweeter.
Well, the block by Cedric Lewis inside is kind of reminiscent of his brother, Derek Lewis, who is also a proficient shot blocker. And some people are wondering if the Lewis family has got any more, because you can always use the big guy in the middle who can swat shots away.
Smith breaks the double team and gets the points. 6 points. 77-45, 5:20 to go. Johnson, they're shooting from everywhere now, and that basket, let's see, he has not yet said it counts. It does. They give the basket to Johnson. 8 points in this half, 16 altogether.
In a game right now, the type of game that we're seeing with a 30-point lead, John Johnson has shown that there are certain things that he loves to do, and it seems as though he shoots better when he has contact, when he can dribble into a crowd and get off balance. He seems to concentrate more, as opposed to the times he gets the ball in the open area for a good 15-foot jump shot with no one around him.
Johnson makes the three-point play, and John Smith now has 4 personal fouls. Here's Kubek bringing it up court. And Brian Davis had the ball knocked away by Cedric Lewis.
At that time, Brian Davis was not aware of the people running with him. He had someone coming down the right side, Kubek or Leitner, and didn't get him the ball.
Well, there's a foul by Cedric Lewis, his 3rd, as Buckley went up for the shot.
A little too easy getting the ball inside the paint again, particularly off an out-of-bounds play.
Another thing to keep in mind, as you take a look at the 77-48 score and the woes of Maryland, that Virginia came in here with a winning streak. they had bumped off such people as Virginia and North Carolina, and Duke absolutely held Virginia to the point where they were not in the ball game. So this is not a happening only to the University of Maryland. Virginia experienced the same kind, not this lopsided defeat, but the same kind of frustration and defensive pressure by Duke and the good shooting by Duke.
And in keeping with all great teams with great traditions, the Blue Devils have established some type of mystique here in Cameron Indoor Stadium, and it happens to everyone. I never liked playing here, and I'm sure no one else did. It's just one of these places that you want to hurry up and get it over with, because more times than not, you come out on the short end.
Dickerson driving the baseline and feeding outside, but he is fouled by Smith, and by my count, that's all of it. That's on John Smith. That should be number 5. How many times did you win here as we take a look at this?
Well, in my 3 years, once.
Once.
Here Dickerson drives the baseline nicely. Smith comes over a little bit too late, but Dickerson has his head up. He was past the basket, didn't have an opportunity to shoot the ball, but he did see the open player outside, the one that John Smith left. And that's something that Maryland is going to have to get better at, because teams are sagging so much inside, or they're putting pressure on players so much that they're going to have to be a little more niftier with the ball and move the ball around and hit the open people.
Dickerson at the line, 1 for 2 for there, 3 points altogether. Smith fouls out with 6 points and a couple of rebounds. Dickerson, a co-captain, today started his 5th game, only because Walt Williams, the freshman, has that broken finger, although Williams has played quite a bit today. (79-50) with 4:48 to go, and this ball, no, it's not intercepted, almost there. Intercepted. Leitner keeps it, and Davis comes down, and the foul is on number 22, Nard, his 3rd.
Well, that's a pretty good display of ball handling ability by Christian Leitner, who gets the ball in good shape inside and passes off, makes a nice decision to hit one of the runners on the right side.
Leitner has actually started 7 games as a freshman for Duke this year. Ryan Davis getting more and more playing time. He has 3 points, 1 for 2 from the line. We'll get another. As we said, he played 20 minutes against Notre Dame in a nationally televised game from South Bend.
You know, throughout the season, when you watch a young player develop, sometimes you see him blossom all of a sudden in practice or in one particular game. And as a coach, you realize, well, it's time to give this guy some time. And I think it is Brian Davis's time, because he has shown an awful lot. With time, he's gained a lot of confidence in what he's doing.
Duke is not an old team. Berry is a senior, Snyder's a senior, Smith is a senior, and that's just about it. The shot taken, no good there by Lewis, and brought down by Crawford Palmer. Slapped at, but keeps the ball, and here comes Leitner. And Brian Davis. Brickey came in to replace John Smith. He's got the ball now. The ball is knocked away. Tried to get it into Palmer, but knocked away by Cedric Lewis. $29-point lead. The biggest lead has been 33 points. And the ball is knocked away there, but there's a block to be called here against Duke. And it'll be on Leitner.
And that's one of Gerald Mustaf's strengths. Excellent quickness with the ball. Nice quick move to the basket. He gets his head and shoulders past Leitner. And that's something that you really can't teach. That's instinctive. And Gerald Mustaf has it, and he's only going to get better.
Mustaf is 6'10", 225, and in the Washington, D.C. area, he was the player of the year, joining select company that has come out of that area over the years. He is only 2 for 5 from the free throw line, however, starting today as a 74% free throw shooter. 3:45 left. Tubac with the ball. Leitner gets it out. Brickey. Time is on the side of the Blue Devils. Get it in underneath for, well, I was going to say an easy basket, but Leitner blew it.
Didn't go up strongly enough.
Johnson again shooting and short and off the hands of Brickey and Leitner, both of whom went for it. Massenberg is coming back in. 3:25 to go at Cameron Indoor Stadium, where it has been all Duke, and at the moment they lead by 29, 79-50.
Is this what brought the tails near?
Dickerson to throw the ball in, out to Johnson.
You see, with Dickerson cutting out that quickly, Maryland's got to recognize when they can go for a quick play. John Johnson a little late in hitting Dickerson, who could have thrown the ball inside real quickly. Those are the quick shots that Maryland can set up if given the opportunity, but they've got to recognize them, and these are the times that they can work on it.
Dickerson, here's a shot, and it is blocked by Massenberg, I beg your pardon, by Dickerson. That's his second foul. Glenn, in the last 3 games, Duke has shot 54.5% against Georgia Tech, 59.7 against Notre Dame, 62.5 against Virginia, and at the moment they're shooting 59.6 against Maryland. That's some kind of shooting, as for the season they came in hitting almost 56% before this game.
Well, this game is a great example of why that occurs. Not only do they pound the ball into the paint and get their big guys established and even get Robert Brickey established, but they also run such a great fast break off of turnovers and steals that it allows them to get the easy shots, and that's what picks up your field goal percentage, making sure you convert on the easy plays.
Mustaf has it blocked by Christian Leitner, and the throw, can Davis save it? No, it belonged to Maryland, going back the other way with 2:48 to go. And Duke up by 31. Duke, as we said, will be on the road. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Tuesday they'll be up in Cambridge, Massachusetts to play Harvard. Then they'll be thankful to get back home, but they've got Georgia Tech with Tom Hammonds and Brian Oliver and the rest. Johnson from outside, that is off the mark, but it is stuffed in by Mustaf, who did a good job there. And let's see, 1, 2, 5, 11 in this half, 15 altogether for Girard. Kubek, 3.5, yes.
And as Greg Kubek ran down on the defensive end, all of his teammates stood up and applauded. They recognize as the season goes on, he's got to come off the schneid here and do a good job of hitting the perimeter shot that only makes it better for the guys inside.
Christian Leitner over the back of Massenberg, who will go to the line. Buckley coming back in, 2:11 to go. Leitner coming out. George Bergen is coming in.
And that's Mike Krzyzewski's victory cigar, it seems. At least the Duke fans have recognized it as such.
Bergen is 7 feet tall, a junior, and he's a redshirt because he's a 5-year student of mechanical engineering and computer science. Massenberg misses. 9 points for Tony. Had 25 points and 15 rebounds against LSU earlier, and 24 this week against Clemson. Not that kind of afternoon here at Cameron Indoor Stadium. And misses both of them. And again, off the hands of Dave Dickerson, the ball belongs to the Blue Devils.
Well, at this point, I'd have to feel that Dave Dickerson and Gerard Mustaf are just dog tired, and that's when you start losing the grip on the ball and losing your handle.
And Dickerson made no real move there except to get in the way of the Duke player and draws his 4th personal foul. 84-52, Duke with 2:05 to go. Bob Wade, beleaguered. The monkey kind of went a little bit off his back as far as the media was concerned when his team beat Clemson, and that'll be right back in place. You can just see how the fellows feel. There was a cartoon in this morning's paper. I forget the name of the cartoon, but a coach was shown along the sidelines like this, and the cartoon character said, "I'm getting ulcers, and I'm just a fan." He said, "How do they stand it?"
Well, at this point, I don't think the game is in doubt, and I don't think too many people are getting ulcers. You shouldn't. I mean, the game is played, and Bob Wade has just got to find a way to get his team fired up and prepared again for the next game.
Buckley gets the rebound. Davis, and he's walking with the ball as he turned. He turned and saw Nard and took an extra step.
Well, it's easy, as I said before, it's easy to get careless in a game such as this. But the problem is, for the players who don't get an awful lot of time, here's when you bear down mentally again and do all the things that are necessary to make yourself a better player, because it becomes a habit.
Williams comes in. He's the man with the basketball there. And Martin comes in. He's got the ball there. Massenberg stays in. Mustaf stays in. Gets it into Mustaf, and Mustaf goes up and is fouled, and Crawford Palmer says, "Oh, shucks." He's the man who did it.
It's one of the rare times that Maryland executed well in moving the ball, keeping their offense spread, and hitting the cutters inside. They haven't had an opportunity. The defensive pressure right now isn't as great as it was earlier in the game. But again, these are the times when you work on these things.
15 points for Mustaf. He's missed his last 2 free throws in a row. Could be because of fatigue. 1.5 minutes to go. Duke will be 17-4 overall, 6-4 in the conference, and 52-5 here at Cameron Indoor in the last 4 years. Maryland will be 8-14 and 1-8 in the conference. Walking as the 2 men battle for the ball.
Well, you know, the statistics have to be padded a little bit. And Palmer and Buckley decided somebody's going to get this rebound. Somebody's going to get it on their stats.
Less than a minute and a half. Mustaf will try to make it all happen himself, and it is knocked away and blocked and fouled by Crawford Palmer.
Crawford Palmer's an excitable young fellow.
A freshman out of Arlington, Virginia. Maryland is above its low point scoring marks against South Carolina and UTEP. 51 there. They've got 53 here. Mustaf has not had a good afternoon free throw shooting. He's missed 4 and made 3. Now he's evened it up.
Look at Bob Wade on the bench, and you got to be wondering to a certain extent what he must be feeling at this particular time after coming off the Clemson win, believing that his team was ready, and in fact they started out pretty ready. They didn't seem to be jittery or anything, but they just lost their composure to a certain extent against the Duke tenacious man-to-man, and he's got to find somebody that's going to lead this team.
Williams did a good job there knocking the ball out, showing quick hands. He's a good young freshman, 6'8", 190. We're in the last minute and 15 seconds of a lopsided game, in which Duke has looked superb. Shot up there by Palmer, no good, and Buckley will go up and put it in. Clay Buckley gets his first basket. Well, it's going to be exciting going down to the Atlantic Coast Conference Tournament, and the stretch run between here and there. Mustaf misses. And there's Palmer with yet another rebound in a short time. He's got 6 rebounds, which equals his career high. Has not played that much.
You know, I wonder why Walt Williams is still in this game. His finger obviously is not fully healed, and this game is so far out of reach you can't see it.
Kubek went for the 3-pointer. Williams went up and got the rebound, and Kubek fouled him. And in a 1-on-1 situation with 32 seconds to go.
Number 43.
A tribute to the Duke student body. A lot of the paying folks have since left. There's some empty seats around the upper part of the stadium, but the jam student section remains jammed.
Shooting for Maryland.
Williams 2 for 2 from the free throw line. Failed to hit from the floor.
These students have been known to grace their team with all the support they can possibly give, and I'm sure with the hard work that goes on here throughout the week, this is a real treat for some of these students. Particularly a blowout like this.
Williams made mention to concentration. Len did about Hurt to concentrate more from the free throw line. He's 3 for 3, and he was less than a 50% shooter before today, but he has had nothing but net on 4 consecutive shots from the free throw line. 86-57.
See, Jim, as a collegiate player, I was hurt enough.
Come on.
No.
Kubek just threw the ball well past Crawford Palmer coming down court. Belongs to Maryland. Williams still in the game, and Kasoff has come in. Mitch, the walk-on, has since earned a scholarship. Back in for one of his limited and rare appearances. Number 5. As Williams cradling the ball with his right. Now wanting to use the left. Martin with a chance for a 3-pointer, and he hits it. Jesse Martin gets his first points. A 3-pointer, 86-60. Last 10 seconds of the game. In underneath to Bergen. Can't hang on to the ball. Mustaf loses the ball, and that's just the way it's going to end. The frustration of having an open shot and losing the ball through fatigue, and Duke has won the ball game. They're 6-4 in the conference. Maryland has won at 8 in the conference final. The Blue Devils 86, and the Terrapins of Maryland